Good morning, everybody. It's Monday, March 1st. We are on our way to spring. Always love when March comes for us, and it's just that sign. And then yesterday, the weather, the warmth and the sun. Today, the sun's shining. It's a beautiful day. It's a great day to give thanks to God. Today, we are still in our Lenten season, and we are this next week, I think, will be our third Sunday after Lent. And we're moving toward Good Friday and Easter as we focus and think about that season. Today, we're continuing our talk on our idea of rock solid, God's immovable love for us as we've been looking at the covenants. Now, today, we get into Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through 17. This is God's covenant with the Israeli people, with the Hebrew people, the Israelites. And this is the document, the 10 Commandments. This is how they should live. And I'm not going to read all the commandments. You can do that. But I do want to read the first couple of verses of our text. And God spoke all these words. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. You shall have no other gods before me. You shall not make for yourself an image in the form of anything in the heaven above or on the earth below or in the waters below. You shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but showing love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. And you can go on and read the commandments. And, the 10 Commandments is an interesting thing. It is the law. God lays out the law. But sometimes we focus on the law and we miss the covenant. The covenant that God made with the Israelites is much bigger than the idea of law, than just keeping a list of rules. Exodus describes the law of God as the book of the covenant, right? And so today in this text, we kind of look at this relationship between covenant and law. I think there's three important things when you look at the 10 Commandments. It's more so than just looking at it as a contract, as you need to keep these things in order for God to love you, accept you, for God to be in relationship with you, that somehow if you break one of these, because I'm just going to be honest with you, look back over your life, even in the last year or even the last months or weeks, according to Jesus, who raised the bar on just keeping a list. For example, Jesus says, you have heard it said, do not commit adultery, right? I tell you, Jesus says, if you even think about a person in the wrong way sexually, that it is adultery. So he raises the bar to make it so that it's impossible for us to keep every letter of the law. So what's more important in this is looking at the covenant as a bigger idea. First, I want to say this about the law. The law reveals the nature of the God of the covenant. So as God penned these 10 rules, if you will, which his people were to obey, he was revealing to them some of his own characteristics, right? He is a God of holiness. He is a God of majesty. He is a God of justice and sovereignty, right? He gives the law to his people. And he says, I am the Lord your God. And then what he does is he covenants with them. The law, this is not a contract that he has with them, but it's a covenant. And there's a difference between a contract and a covenant. I think the second thing that the law does is that it defines the people of the covenant. So first, it defines the God of the covenant. And now these 10 commandments define the people of the covenant. These 10 things, as they strive to live these out and remain in covenant with God, defines them. They become a distinct people. if you will. They are unique. There is no other community, no other people group, no other family, if you will, on earth like this one that follows these commands, these 10 commands, who strive to be in this covenant. They are a distinct people. They were devoted to Jehovah, the God who gave them this covenant. So God, through the 10 commandments, was setting them apart. He was saying, you will be different. You will live differently, think differently, treat one another differently. I will be the only God that you have. There's no other people on earth like this. And so the law is not just a list of things for us to keep, because Paul would say it's impossible. You cannot keep every letter of the law, but we have a covenant with God that defines who God is, and it defines who we are as the people of the covenant. I think the third thing that the law does for us, if you will, the law defines the area within which God's people will experience the blessings of the covenant, right? The best illustration is marriage. And all throughout Scripture, we are referred to as God's bride, right? That even the Israelite people look to God as a husband, if sort of like a father, a husband. There's this marriage illustration all throughout Scripture, because marriage really defines the true essence of what covenant means. Marriage is not a contract. If you treat your marriage like a contract and you just have two differing sides, and you have these expectations and lists of each other, you will break those expectations, and you will grow weary in your marriage, because marriage is more than just a contract, right? It's a covenant. And so if husbands and wives remain faithful to each other, they will enjoy the blessings and the happiness that comes from marriage, from the promise of the vow of the covenant that you made when you married your spouse. If a husband is unfaithful to his wife, then he remains married, right? But his unfaithfulness leads him to a web of deception, unhappiness, and hurt, which may take a long time to recover. So God gives us these laws. He gives the people the laws, which made it clear that the blessings of the covenant were related to the way in which they lived their lives. So the path of obedience was the path of covenant blessing. The path of disobedience is the path on which blessings will be forfeited. And that is the law that they lived, the covenant that they lived under. Jesus gives us a new covenant, and we'll get into that later in our series. But it's very much tied to and part of the old covenant, right? Here's the key. God covenants with us. He gives us the law because it defines his nature. He gives us the law because it defines the kind of people that we will be. And he gives us the law because it defines this area in which we experience blessing from God, that we remain in relationship with God. So get into the 10 Commandments, read them, understand that they are not a list of things for you to strive to keep. That is legalism. That is looking to do something on your own and keeping these laws. And that's what the Pharisees did. The Pharisees were the poster children of keeping the law. As a matter of fact, they had over 600 rules that they had to keep just to try to keep the law. And even then, as Jesus pointed out, they couldn't do it. And they were the best law keepers of the people of God, but they also were the worst at breaking the law. So I encourage you to look at the 10 Commandments and look at the covenant that God makes with you. God covenants to love you and to be in relationship with you. And as we strive to obey him, we remain in that covenant with him, right? So God bless you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.